pushing through. Let's move on to the 5-figure summary. This is the next sort of difficult part of this. I think you'll be okay with this. I think most people cover this pretty well, but the first time you see it, you might be like, oh, that's a little bit more confusing. So, 5-figure summary. The 5-figure summary is made up of a minimum, the quartile 1, the median, the quartile 3, and the maximum value. Now, the best way of looking at this is on box plots, which we haven't been through yet, and this is why I kept it. We're going to go through box plots here. So, you can work this out in the calculator. If you are given all the data in a completely obscure way, it's not in order, you can just put that all into your calculator. Maybe given like 30 values in a SACA exam and the values are not in order, just go through and put the values into calculator. You don't need to order them. You can just put them in a sheet, and then you can go through and do this all. You can go to your settings, you can go to your keyboard and go, all right, I want 5-figure summary, and it'll come out. It'll give you a 5-figure summary. You can even make an order it for you, so you can order all that data, etc. So forth. But if I've got this data here and I say, all right, I want my 5-figure summary. Well, first of all, I'm going to say, all right, well, how many numbers do I have? I have 14 numbers. That's the most important thing. How many numbers do you have? Well, I have 14 numbers here. I've counted it out. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I have 14 numbers. So the median is going to be between the 7th and the 8th number. That means the median is going to be in the middle of those two. So I need to add those two together and find the average of the two, or the average between two numbers that are 1 apart is just going to be 0.5 between them. So as you can see here, I've got 7 on the left, I've got 7 on the right. Then I go, all right, what is my first quartile? Well, my first quartile is going to be the median of those first 7 numbers. And the median of those first 7 numbers is going to be the 4th number, because it'll be 3 on either side, so it'll be 8. Same with the back group, so the second 50%, I'm going to find my 4th number in there, which will be 21. As you can see there, I now have my Q1, I have my median, and I have my Q3. And then my min and my max is really easy. Well, my min is going to be my smallest number, and my max is going to be my biggest number. So if it's in order, I just go to the end, I go to the front, and I go to the end. Now you can do the same on a dot plot. We already talked about the median before, but you can do the exact same thing on a dot plot. You have this information, you can go ahead and do it. You can do it on a leaf plot. You can do it all the same. But the single best way to represent a 5-figure summary is through a box plot. So, first of all, you need to figure out what your IQR is. Now, you might be looking at me and saying, what's an IQR? You've just jumped from box plots to IQRs. Now, box plots display IQR really, really well. Now, IQR stands for interquartile range. The interquartile range is the range between your Q3 and your Q1. So, essentially with this, you can also do outlier calculations. Now, before I jump into outlier calculations, I want to show you what I mean by that. So, you've got a box plot here. Now, again, I think my axes have all gone a bit skewed when I made these slides bigger. I do apologize that these were not fixed up. But as you can see here, I've got my box plot here. Now, assuming this is spread out, we're going to 26 and we got 1. What you can see here is that your box plot represents a couple of things. It represents, first of all, each of your 25% ranges. So it represents your minimum, your maximum, your Q1, your median, and your Q3. Now, where does it represent that? It represents it at each of these points here. So the earliest point either being the fence. So the fence, I've lost my mouse, there it is. This fence here, or this minimum outlier or an outlier will be your minimum point. In this case here, we've got an outlier, so your outlier is your minimum point. Your Q1 is this first line of the box. Your median is the line in the middle of the box. Your Q3 is your line at the end of the box. Now, your maximum, again, works the same way as the minimum. It's either the fence, so the fence which is here, or if you've got an outlier, it's the outlier. So the outlier always takes precedence because that's higher up or lower down, but if there is no outlier, you utilize the fence. Now, as you can see here, these two are outliers, but I think this is the most important point, is your fences. So we're going to talk about fences in terms of outlier fences in a second, but these fences are different. You will draw this fence here at the largest and smallest. So at this end here, this will be the largest. So this is the largest. And this down here is the smallest. Now, the largest non-outlier value. Please do not draw your fence at your outlier calculation, which we'll discuss in 1 second. This fence goes, the one that I've got highlighted right now with my mouse, this goes now at your smallest non-outlier piece of information. Now, if you've got no outliers, this will be the minimum. If you have outliers, you use your next smallest piece of information. So in this case here, I know this scale is wrong, so we'll use these the sort of little points. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 right now is my smallest non-outlier piece of information. 1 is an outlier. So in this case here, 1 is an outlier. Now this may be very wrong, it's just an example, but 1 is an outlier. However, 4 is not an outlier. Now my fence, my outlier, fence might have been at 2. So I might have done a calculation and found that my outlier fence is 2. Therefore, my outlier 1 is, well, my value of 1 was an outlier because it's less than 2. But I'm not drawing my fence at 2. I'm drawing my box fence at 4 because that is my smallest value that is not an outlier. Really important. At the other end, it's the same thing. So let's say this goes to 26. So I have an outlier at 26 and maybe my fence was at 24. Maybe I did my outlier calculation and I found that anything above 24 is an outlier. Therefore, 26 was an outlier. But then my next biggest value was 23. So I had a 23 and then I had a 26. Well, 23, therefore, is going to be my fence end because that's my largest value outside of my outliers. Now, how do I do this outlier calculation? The reason why this box plot is actually slightly wrong is because even with the axis wrong, none of those values would have been outliers. Your outlier calculation looks like this. Your lower outlier fence, not the fence that you draw, your outlier fence is Q1, take away 1.5 by RQR, and your upper outlier fence is Q3 plus 1.5 times RQR. That is how you determine outliers. This is a formula you need to have in your summary book, and it's really important you utilize it whenever you draw out a box plot. Now, the other useful thing with box plots is it represents your 25-25. So, given that this is your minimum and this is your Q1, you know that 25% of the data is between that point there. Given this is Q1 and median, you know there's another 25% in here. Given this is the median and the Q3, you know there's another 25% in here. So then you can say, well, there's less than 75% of information below whatever value Q3 is. Or there is 75% of information above 5, because we know this is 5. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this line is at 5. So I know 75% of my data in this box plot represents is above 5. And then between Q3 and max, there's another 25%. So there's your 100% if you add all those 25% up. So that's your usefulness of a box plot. Now,